needs to be done.
All right, you're all set.
Great, thanks, Steve. So we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you, everyone. Okay, so let's take a roll call, please. So Jeff Mangels, Vice Chair, Harbor Management Commission.
Chris McConnell, Harbor Management Commission.
Lori Jones, Harbor Management Commission.
John Pinto, Harbor Management Commission.
Joe Schnierlein, Mayor's Water Quality Committee.
Chris White, Harbor Management Commission.
Pete Johnson, Shellfish Commission.
Steve Bardish, Shellfish Commission.
Jeff Stedman, Consultant.
I thought that I saw Mike.
Justin
Matthews.
Bisagli, Marine Unit, North, please.
Okay. I swear I saw Mike Matthews on here. Okay.
Yeah, he was just.
He's I'm gonna try to. He got moved over to attendee, so I just put him in as a panelist. So hopefully
He was just logged on.
There he is.
There he
back.
is.
So do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Alan, you can raise your hand if you can hear us, if you're here. Alan has raised his hand. He is in attendance. Okay. So we can go through the agenda. Let's have some public comment. Is there any public comments? I see two attendees with their hand raised. So let's go in order on the list. Diane.
Diane, you can talk. Diane did send a message saying she is having some technical problems, but I unmuted her, so she should be able to talk.
Her mic is still indicated it's muted.
Yeah, if she can't, she asked if you could give her a minute to call back in, but you do have another.
Absolutely. No,
raised.
no problem at all. Linnell Jones, you are up.
Thank you. Thank you. As a member of the public, I attend Harbor Commission meetings because the Harbor Commission supports Norwalk's harbor management plan and is one of the only ways a citizen can share coastal concerns. This commission is an important check and balance for city leaders and planners, particularly when issues of the harbor, harbor management, or harbor development arise, and is critical for public comment and outreach. I'm not sure how educated P&Z commissioners are about coastal issues, but hopefully they know they do have to listen to you. And I ask that you use this opportunity to share the following. First, the waterfront study completed last fall has flaws. How could a waterfront study not include what CERCA warned the city about rising sea levels in Connecticut? CERCA, the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation, is supported by Connecticut Deep, UConn, is federally funded and independent. CERCA's warnings are not new. So how did UTILE miss these? Maybe UTILE from a different state didn't look at the state of Connecticut hazard mitigation plan, where CERCA is mentioned multiple times, which is against increasing density in any flood zone, or the Western COG-POCD. How did UTILE miss hazardous waste sites? If you're not looking for something, you don't find it. UTILE was looking to increase density and waterfront, high-end, mixed-use works. Most can't get their heads around the idea that sea levels can and will rise 3 to 4 feet, that floods are dangerous, expensive, that more development means more risk. the flood zone is not the right place to increase density. Insurers now know this, and Circa has told the city this. Now you can. Now you, the Harbor Management Commission, needs to. This is not consistent with Norwalk's harbor management plan on many levels. Laymen on the Norwalk P&Z Commission need to hear why density needs to be built outside coastal flood zones from you, the Norwalk Harbor Commission. It's a matter of public health and safety. 2, approving this eliminates half, 50% of the Marine Commercial District, changing it to mixed-use residential. And if this is approved as presented, then any change can be made, any modification to zoning or land use without comment from the public or this commission, a sweeping change. Just say no for the public, for transparency, out of respect for the history and importance of the Marine Commercial District in our city of Norwalk. No change that completely drops the Harbor Commission review, which eliminates any chance of public comment, should ever be approved. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Linnell. I don't see Diane back. I see Robert. Robert,
Uncle.
do you have Kunkel? Yep. Do you have a comment? Or are you just an attendee? All right, Diane did post a
She's
nope,
back.
she's back.
Up.
She is back.
I unmuted her, so she's allowed to speak if she can.
Diane, you have the floor if you can unmute.
I mean, she has the ability, if it's okay with the chair, to type a message in. I don't, probably would imagine be pretty lengthy, but
I would imagine. Diane, that is an option if you want to type a question or a statement in the Q&A. Diane, can you hear us? Just raise your hand. You can, great. The email I sent to make sure your response to P&Z includes the contaminated sites. I don't have that email.
Jeff, we actually got that email from Michelle.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so it's good and extensive, but yes,
Do you have that email, Lori?
I do. Yes.
Can you read that?
Oh,
Yeah.
so you want me to read it? Okay,
Sure.
so wait, sorry, I gotta find
Well,
it.
Diane asked that we read it.
That we read it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Give me
Lori, I can
one-
read it if you'd like. I have it. pulled up.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah,
sure.
thank you.
Great, thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
Greetings. While I am a member of the Mayor's Water Quality Committee and a former Harbor Management Commissioner under Mayor Bill Collins, I am sending this email as a private resident of Norwalk. As you review the documents and land use study for consideration to include the POCD and serve as a reference for future zoning regulation considerations, please consider the following. 1. Hold a public hearing in order to hear from the maritime community as well as concerned Norwalkers before voting to approve this study and its related documents. 2. Adopt a formal public participation section of your meetings in order to include relevant information and ideas from the public as well as Harvard stewards. 3. Contaminated sites. Reject approval for this waterfront industrial use land study unless and until changes are made within the document related to contaminated sites, noted in the section where brownfields are mentioned. I have notified the Planning and Zoning Commission, the related staff, Ms. Jessica Vonashek, Mr. Kleppen, and Mr. Baker, and the mayor and the council that the document as currently written and unfortunately approved by both the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Common Council contains false information and declarations about the presence of contaminated properties in the study area. There are many ways to wordsmith the presence of contaminated sites. Denying they exist in Norwalk is not one of them. As a longtime environmental professional who specialized in Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental site assessments, it would be unwise to make a false declaration about contaminated properties when our industrial legacy includes several private and public sites that still have not been remediated and remain a threat to the health and wealth of our maritime/shellfish industry, in addition to our community stakeholders. While Chief Vonashek, upon my direct alert, noted that, quote, the staff is taking my comments seriously, unquote, I have yet to see any effort to correct the false information related to the study area. It appears that the consultant did not do its proper due diligence when it comes to the presence of contaminated sites, and that the document may have been censored or recorded discussions by the ad hoc waterfront industrial land use study subcommittee many months ago. During recent meetings, Mr. Kleppen of the Planning and Zoning staff left out important information about the types of contaminated sites that are of concern in the study area and beyond. This is not just about entities known and specifically defined as official, quote, brownfield sites, unquote. While his audience, made up of mostly laymen, heard his comments, they are not being told enough of the facts in order to make informed decisions. Number 4, Water Street and beyond. There appears to have been an absence of adequate discussion about the pros and cons of high-density development within the flood-prone areas of our coastline. Your committee and commission should not have to be the only city entity that understands this, but as it stands, you are going to be an important group to course correct the ongoing land use documents like this study. Again, please consider a public hearing in addition to your review with adequate advance notice to the public. I would be happy to briefly make a presentation to your committee and commission to explain my concerns. Diane.
Thank you for your reading of Diane's comment, Chris. I appreciate that. Diane, thank you for your comment as well. We will, as the Harbor Management Commission as a whole, will review all of the information that you and Linnell have provided us. Alan, are you back? So you are still don't have your mic going. Is that correct? You can raise your hand if that is correct. I see 2 Alan Kibbe's.
That's frightening.
Oh, that's frightening. Hey, Alan.
Glad I'm joining you guys. Sorry.
That's okay. Technology at its best. No problem at all. Okay,
That's right.
we have just heard public comments. Are there any? Are there any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we will proceed. So we're at number 4, approval of the minutes. Alan.
Approval of the minutes. Laurie, are there any other changes to the minutes other than what we've received from you?
No, I haven't received any.
Okay,
Other than
I have
John.
a few.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah. Under my section, it basically says, he reviewed the intentions of the Water Quality Committee to reintroduce vegetation. The Water Quality Committee is not reintroducing vegetation. There's a grant that is being proposed, including the Watershed Initiative and the Maritime Aquarium, and I have input on it as well as several other people to take a look at the south end of Veterans Park and create a better habitat for what is there. But there's also a reintroduction of vegetation that's taking place at Oyster Shell Park. I don't know if any of you have gone up there, but they've already dug up a tremendous amount of Phragmites. It looks like they went down at least 2 to 3 feet, if not more. And their plan there was to put in, if you remember from the plans, Spartina. And then also further on, it said, reviewed current interactions with Department of Health regarding red algae. It's actually a dinoflagellate, and I want this in the minutes. The dinoflagellate is called Probostromium minimum, and it is a hazardous algae bloom. And that becomes important because it was disregarded by the Department of Health when I mentioned that it could have made animals sick at the pond at Taylor Farms. And then also, specifically, it says 12 rivers in the state have been declared a fishing advisory alert. That was specifically for PFAS. And then I also mentioned at that time that the water temperature at the aquarium was 78 degrees, which is extremely high, as well as the oxygen levels being down at 0.1 parts per million or milligrams per liter, which is exceptionally low and not good for marine life. So those are important to have in the minutes.
So I will say, in my opinion, these minutes cannot be approved because we will have to rewrite that section, Joe.
Okay,
So I don't see how we can approve the minutes based on what you just presented, because we need specific language.
I'll get that out to you tomorrow.
All right, so we will postpone the approval of these minutes until our next meeting. All right, moving right along, we're pleased to have some guests with us this evening. Louise Washer is my contact with this project, but it's the Maritime Aquarium's feasibility study for Betts Park, which we did talk about in a previous meeting. But she and her colleagues or cohorts or her cohort are going to present what they're up to, and hopefully, I think there's an ulterior motive here of getting a harbor management person onto their committee. So Louise, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for giving us the chance to talk to you today. I'm going to just pass the mic right over to Alexis, who I think is going to give our presentation tonight, and take a minute to introduce Justin, also who's here from the aquarium. So if you guys.
Hey, welcome to be here. Good to see everyone. And yeah, I'll let Alexis take the mic.
And good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and just do a presentation that Sarah Crosby from the Maritime Aquarium showed during the stakeholder meeting. And just to kind of recap, the Norwalk River Watershed Association, the Maritime Aquarium, and the City of Norwalk, we teamed up to apply for a grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's Long Island Sound Future Funds program last year, and to our delight, we were awarded funds to do a feasibility study of just the offshore portions of the southern tip of Betts Park. So it is just a feasibility study. What's there now is one of the questions. What are the habitats that currently exist at the edge of Betts Park, and what exactly is it supporting further out? And based on that, the consultant that's going to be paid for with this grant fund will then come up with some things that either the city or the aquarium can look for grant funds in the future to improve or protect that habitat. So that's the objective, and let me share my screen real quickly.
And we are looking for somebody from Harbor Management to join
Yes.
the stakeholder committee.
and shellfish is well,
and shellfish.
Shellfish is also important. Sorry. All right. So that's us. And I'm gonna shake this up a little bit because again, this is Sarah's presentation from a few weeks ago, but we've already done introductions. Give a quick overview again of the project, the status and next steps. I'll get to introducing Biohabitats. Biohabitats isn't here this evening, but they are the consulting firm that was hired through the RFP process. And then a quick review of meeting cadence and scheduling for that lucky harbor management commissioner that chooses to be on the stakeholder committee. It's very light, but fascinating. So the stakeholder committee, we are looking for representatives from the Maritime Aquarium, the city, the NRWA. We have people from Connecticut Deep, people representing East Norwalk Blue and Cops Island Oysters, ENMA, the Shellfish Commission, the Harbor Management Commission, and the Norwalk Mayor's Water Quality Committee, Mr. Schmierlein, and as well as someone from Sacred Heart University who has direct familiarity with the Stratford Point Restoration Project there. And so the sole purpose of the project again is to just assess the options that we have in restoration and protection of about 1,520 linear feet of shoreline at the very southern end of Betts Park. So we're not looking at the western side and the public docks on the eastern side and you know the slips, but just that southern portion that extends south of the park. And we're looking for restoration approaches that would be a best fit that combine salt marsh vegetation, upland coastal plants, and improved public access that address the flooding and erosion that currently occur at the park, and that increase our understanding of the natural habitat that is currently supported, and finding a way to continue to support and enhance that habitat at the same time improving the public access to the space in a way that is going to stick around throughout climate change and sea level rise. And this is just a old 1760 map of the harbor showing the extent of kind of this marsh symbol, and that Betts Park had been a salt marsh prior to development of this part of the waterfront. Not a lot of landmarks there, but this is Seaview Ave and the cemetery as East Ave comes down. And this is a 1934 aerial photograph from the Connecticut State Library. The red outlines are today's tax maps. And so this is the more or less the land extent of the park. And then this is the access road that goes around the park. And as you can see, in 1934, before the park was developed into a park, a lot of the area off of it appears to have been something, whether it was salt marsh, tide flats, or a mix. And then you can clearly see the initial development of channels into both the harbor and at the end of Seaview and adjacent to Mill Pond. These are some winter photographs of the edge of the park that we submitted with our grant application, just trying to show the amount of erosion at the edge of the park. This is that asphalt access way, and obviously parts of it are nearly gone as coastal erosion continues to kind of eat away. But we also wanted to show, again, here's the same asphalt plant. We still have salt marsh vegetation that is right at the edge of the built environment, and we want to make sure that there's room for Spartina to continue to march landward in the future with sea level rise. So as I noted, Long Island Sound Future Funds provided grant funding to the Maritime Aquarium. So the Maritime Aquarium will be doing all the award management and the contracting and hiring of a consultant. We only recently finalized that grant award agreement in June 2023. And part of the grant, we had to list a variety of activities and kind of timelines. And so the ones on the screen now, we've pretty much gone through. We've prepared a RFQ. We received 5 bids and we have selected a consultant, and the Maritime Aquarium has entered into a contract with the consultant. Like I said, the consultant attended that stakeholder meeting a few weeks ago. And they are working on the next steps. Anytime you apply for a Long Island Sound Future Funds grant, you must provide a quality assurance plan, or QAP. And that can be a pretty significant process. That's why we've allocated at least 2 months for the consultant to write that QAP, submit it to the federal reviewers, and get that approved. The QAP has to cover all, the consultant has to describe kind of all methods for the gathering of data, whether it's raw data when they're out there at the site, or when they are doing reviews of existing plans, information maps, or anything. So it has to cover all of that. It has to also cover all of our public outreach and how we're going to use that public outreach for the project. And so then a lot of this obviously is a consultant-based project, with the consultant using their expertise to come up with their document. The project team, meaning Louise, Sarah, Justin, and I meet weekly once they are doing their work with the consultant. And then the project team will update the stakeholder committee with meetings that we plan to have approximately 3 of those until the project is done. And so from start to finish, we expect a 1-year project. So we're in about the 4th month, and we'd have stakeholder meetings once the consultant is able to initiate work, kind of midway through work, and then kind of a final stakeholder meeting. That's, oh no, I misspoke. Should have clicked forward. 15th month, sorry. So then we have a draft report, opportunity for feedback. I was wondering where all that was. And then a final report, and then a final stakeholder meeting. So a little bit more of a time commitment for the Harbor Management Commission member on the committee, but not much. So like I said, we received 5 bids. Biohabitats was selected. Biohabitats is a national firm that this is their specialty. This is really in line with their wheelhouse. They have offices throughout the country. They call them bioregions, I think. So they divide areas that they work not by state, but by the bioregion. So they have a northeastern Connecticut, northeastern coastal bioregion that is based in Middletown, Connecticut. And so this is, again, that meeting schedule. There should be one coming up in October, one in January, and then in April, more as necessary. Sarah or someone from the aquarium will always send out a doodle poll to try to get any stakeholder committee members in attendance as possible. And we foresee a mix of in-person and virtual meetings for those stakeholder meetings. So that's our pitch. And if you have any
Wow.
questions. Any questions for
Questions?
Louise, myself, or Justin from the aquarium?
Jeff,
I might just make a comment, Alexis. You know, the history of Veterans Park, I'm sure you know all this, is very interesting with the Seaview Avenue dump. And
Right.
it was also the lawsuit that was brought against the city by, actually, it was Captain Lovejoy, who was the prominent oysterman, who was the grandfather of the first chairman of the Harbor Commission, Jonathan Lovejoy. But that lawsuit against the city was because the state had closed down the shellfish beds in Norwalk Harbor because of the pollution emanating from the dump, and that led to the construction of the wastewater treatment plant. So we have a report that we prepared on that history, and there was a special act, I'm sure you got that, of the legislature authorizing the city to make that into a park. And so I guess one question might be, are there any, you know, once the park was created, is there any concern that there may still be some contaminants in the soil there that would again point to the need for restoring the integrity of the shoreline? But
Right.
the history of that with the Seaview Avenue dump and the oystermen being concerned and the creation of the wastewater treatment plant is all quite interesting. But I just thought
Yeah.
I'd mention that we have the aerial photos that were well, you have them all too. I just thought
Right.
I'd mention
Well,
that.
if you have the, the history of the park that you mentioned in a digital form and can email it to us, that would be wonderful, or just send us a copy. That would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah.
And for this feasibility study, where they're basically looking at the areas that have not been previously filled in. The biohabitats for this initial feasibility study are not directly looking at soil contamination. That wasn't part of the scope of theirs. Certainly, if the city were to get funding to do big changes to the park, additional feasibility type activities for the upland portions would have to be included in that scope of work. Because of that history that you just mentioned.
And then the only other thing, I'll stop, is one of your earlier slides mentioned the Stratford Point project is perhaps an example to look at. And, you know,
No, not really an example. The person that worked on that is on the stakeholder committee. So it's not really necessarily an interest in what's at Stratford Park, but more using someone that's very familiar with that to glean additional information about pitfalls, positives, negatives.
yeah, we had discussions with Professor Matai, who we all missed over the years, but there are some significant disagreements about that project among people in the town and also the Sacred Heart. But that's for another time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jeff, I was going to add, there's one part of the project that we didn't touch on in that presentation, and that is that there's a public outreach part to this that I think some of that history would be really great for. The first thing we have planned is the International Coastal Cleanup Day on September 17th at the park, and we're going to do some bird walks, and we don't have the rest of them scheduled yet, but it would be great if you wanted to come down to one of those, one or two of them, and just, I don't know, tell people the history and talk about it, because you're such an expert on it.
Well, I'm not the expert. The Harbor Commission did prepare I have to find it. I was trying to look for it
Well, yeah, if you can send that to me,
Yeah.
we can work it into,
Yeah.
maybe some handouts when we're doing the outreach, because we want to involve people that way.
I'll
So that'd
find
be
it.
great.
I'll find it, Louise.
That would be great.
One thing I could say, around the late 50s, early 60s, they built a moat around the whole Vets Park. And when they dredged East and West Channel, they pumped it all into there. So they just covered the dump with that, which took about 20 years to harden up.
Wow. Any other questions or comments? The question I'd have is if a Harbor Management Commission person is very excited by this and would like to be a stakeholder, who should they reach out to with your group?
Any of us. We do a lot of communication, so there's yeah, any of us. I guess if you Alan, I can send you all of our email contacts, and then
Right.
let you know that they're interested. You can send them either onto us or but I'll send you all of our contacts. What's that?
Terrific. Thank you. Is there any other questions? I'd like to thank you all for coming.
Hey, Alan, excuse me for
Alexis, Louise.
interrupting.
Yep.
I can see that Mike Matthews has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Apologies for a second meeting in a row. I've had some technical issues. So Alexis, just a quick question. I appreciate the presentation, appreciate everything you all are doing. This seems very interesting and it's definitely timely. Something that Jeffrey Stedman and I have been talking about is that I think it's northwest of this area. I'm not sure if it's within the zone that you've targeted for restoration. There is I think the Connecticut Sea Grant and DEEP has identified that little section as one of the 3 target areas in the state for oyster bed restoration. Is that part of this process at all, or is that a little bit outside of the scope of what you think biohabitats will be looking at?
It's within the ballpark. Yes. So we have let them know. They actually knew about that, if I recall, when we did our site visit, right, Justin?
Yeah, they brought that up. They were actually the ones to cite that. Yeah.
Yep. So they're aware of that, and you know, that is definitely one of the things that I think piqued our general interest in looking more closely at the opportunity to use Vets Park and the surrounding areas more, kind of just in a more holistic and public friendly kind of way. And so all of those things, including the talk of the shellfish beds, had kind of led us to Vets Point. So
That's great. Appreciate consideration of that. And as my fellow commissioners have heard at nauseum, my love for oysters, I'll leave it alone, but I'd love to follow up with you about kind of the interplay between our commission, the great work you're doing, and the public as well. So thank you.
Sounds like maybe you should be on our commission, Mike.
Yeah, that's a great pitch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we love to have you join the stakeholder meetings.
It was the late 1920s that the oystermen sued the city, and that's what led to the closing of the Seaview Avenue dump.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
We have all that, Louise, we can share with you.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'd encourage anyone who's wants to be a stakeholder to reach out to these wonderful, wonderful ladies. They're all and gentlemen. They're all wonderful people to work with. Speaking from experience.
thank you, Mr.
Moving right along.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Application review.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Dr. Pinto, there you are.
There we are, right here. Front and center. Yeah, I know, we had Mr. Hiltz probably waiting to be presenting, and that's our first application under review, which is 10 Harborview Avenue. And this is an application by Mr. Mark Hollis, who proposes to replace a steel and timber pier, ramp, and piling anchored floating dock. They want to retain a pre-1987 concrete step and concrete pad in the Nauk Harbor. What they plan to do to replace in the proposal is they need to bring in work barges, which will deliver the equipment and the materials and to be used for removal also of the debris that they plan to do, taking down the old timber and the old pilings. And they plan to have a derrick on a barge that will replace the new timber pilings for anchoring the floating dock and using a vibratory hammer. So it should be a very interesting project, which is going to be done from waterside. And I'll have Mr. Hiltz give us any additional details as to what is required on that project.
Hi, John. Thank you for that. And you kind of summarized it pretty well. It's if you look at the plans, there's and the photo, the existing structure is pretty much shot. It's an old dock that the previous owners, rebuilt from another dock before that apparently. And, Mr. Hollis actually, he initially asked me about, extending the pier under a structures and tidal wetlands permit. And, going out to the main low water with the pier, and then, doing the, ramp and float after that. We did the survey, basically there's not much water there, in that area. And so he decided simply to recreate what he's had and, bring it up to, current standards and guidelines. So basically what we're doing is taking out what's there, putting in a pile supported pier the same length and the same width, elevated over the vegetation.
Is that screen visible, John? I don't know if it is.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
You can kind of see what we're dealing with there, particularly in this photo here. The
That's
third
all
one.
replaced.
Yeah, that'll all be
Where's the blue
replaced,
one?
and the float will have, support to keep it off the bottom, so it won't just, won't be a float just sitting, on there. Those are the steps, and to the right of the steps in that photograph is a little bump out that has a flagpole on it.
Right.
The seawall is obviously pre-1939. It's on a 34 aerial. But in discussions with Emily Hertz at DEP, she just said, this was going to be a dock reconstruction general permit registration. And then she said, I brought up the steps and that, and she looked at the aerials and said, we better just make sure that that's covered too. So we made it a certificate of permission application.
And all the work would be done by Derek, by work barges.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they'll do the piles. It's Gary Wetmore will probably do the work, and what he usually does is goes in, drives the piles. He pre-builds the pier itself in his yard, and then just comes and once the pile caps are installed, they basically just set the pier on top of those and make the fastening from when they're on the pier, and then the ramp and the float obviously are pre-constructed as well.
I just wondered, has the Shellfish Commission reviewed? Maybe
I haven't, this wasn't supposed, this wasn't required to be submitted to the Shellfish Commission. I mean, I'm happy to, wait for their comments or anything like that. I don't, I think Steve Bartish is here, Pete's here. So
yeah.
They can chime in if they have any concerns.
Steve or Pete?
Yeah, thanks, John and John, for the opportunity to comment. I mean, it looks like it should qualify for a COP, frankly. And I don't have any comments other than to suggest maybe a site inspection.
Yeah. Any of the commissioners have any other issues or comments?
John,
Jeff?
do you have a plan drawing that you could share on the screen?
Let's see here. Yeah, I have.
I think
And
there should be
enlarge
one on what, yeah.
Yeah, that one there. Could you enlarge that? That's the existing conditions?
Yep.
They're going to stay the same?
Actually, the float will be smaller. It's a 12 by 12 float. Now it'll be a 10 by 12 float going forward.
10 by 12 as far as which direction, John?
Same distance out. If you go 2 sheets next to the next sheet, you'll see the existing and the proposed elevations. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. 10 by 12. It's still the same distance out.
I see. Oh, so
it gets skinnier.
Oh, it's narrow. Okay, I got it.
The only comment I might make, John, I hope I'm not interrupting, is that to be consistent with our approach to all other projects, the project plans should show the extended littoral property lines and the distance between the existing and proposed structure to those lines.
Okay.
And I think we would recognize that because of the narrowness of the lot, doesn't seem possible to meet the Corps' general guidelines, but it's an existing structure and therefore there would be compelling reasons not to be concerned about that as long as it's
Sure.
not being changed. And then the other part of, I think we agree as a policy, even though the COPs aren't required to be provided to the Shellfish Commission, the policy was for the Harbor Commission to refer them to the Shellfish Commission for comments.
Yes, and that's what we will do. And I think, yeah, and that you did receive a copy of that, Steve or Pete?
I do not have a copy.
Okay, I will send those to you. I thought you received a copy from Amelia.
No, sir.
But absent any concerns or issues raised by the Shellfish Commission, it doesn't seem that we would have any objection to this, or the commission would have objection to it.
Yeah, overall, Jeff, in my estimation, it's an improvement over what's there. It's, obviously elevated over, there's a lot of, vegetation in and around it, but, there seems to be, shade, there's some shading impacts, I think, and also just, it'll be a more stable, structure. Currently, what the owner does as a result of, inheriting this is that the decking, there's some sections of decking that get removed in the winter, things like that, so.
Let me ask, is the low water line shown on these drawings?
Way out, yep, way out. It's probably another, there you go. It's, that, if we were to propose a pier to that length, it'd be it would probably be 150 feet long. So,
Yeah, John, is that to scale? Would that be another like 70+ feet?
yeah, that's to scale, yeah. So, I mean, it's, and again, the issue here is that, once you're at the mean low water line, you can walk out another 50 feet and it's 1.5 feet deep. So you're not gaining a lot of water by, constructing anything like that.
Right, but do we have issues with boats sitting on the bottom at low tide?
With the what?
With the boat sitting on the bottom at low tide?
I don't think he has a boat here. I think he has it on a mooring.
Yeah, there's no indication of a vessel being attached to that dock.
Yeah, I mean, because, it's not really, my understanding is he uses a mooring there, because there's no, I think he has a dinghy that, you would probably put on the float and go out to the boat.
But that's a general condition that we put in the response, John, that.
Right, that's
fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with that.
Our object is sitting on that float. We'll be sitting on the bottom for an appreciable point of time. Yeah, so
I asked that because the Google Earth image from last year has like
Okay,
about an 17-foot boat on the dock, on the ground.
all right. Well, I mean, you can condition it, and he, Mr. Hollis will have to be aware of that.
well, that's usually part of our standard conditions with regard to any vessel or dock sitting on the bottom and any tide cycle. All right, well, I guess we can move forward. We'd like to make a motion, and we can either the commission can indicate that we have no objection to the project moving forward with the following request that the Shellfish Commission have a review, that the any barge location, work barges be subject to harbor master's approval of where the placement is, and that no object, vessel or dock should sit on the bottom of any particular tide cycle. All right, and again,
The extended littoral lines, John.
and the, all right, and the extent, and
Yeah.
the
Distances.
That's
And-
fine, and I can add those in, that's not a problem, Jeff.
right? Okay,
And again, just as a aside to that effect, I mean, we'll actually increase the distance from those lines by making the float narrower.
all right, we'll go ahead with those recommendations.
I'll second that or make that motion. I forget.
On all those in favor?
Aye.
I can't see the entire, let me see here. Any objections? Opposed? I can't see the whole screen. I was wondering if anyone is taking count.
You could stop sharing, that might help.
Oh, There we go. Thank you, Steve. Or is it John? Who is it? Yeah,
Can I have a show of hands again, please?
yes. All right, all those in favor of the proposal? We have aye, aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? All right, so moved. Great. John, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Got that to you as soon as possible.
Thank you, John.
You all. Take care.
All right, let me see here. Our next. Get this out of here. Oop. What's going on here? A minute. We've got technical difficulties here tonight. Here, let me just get this. Here we go. All right, here we are. All right, the next item on the list is our discussion of the status of the city's waterfront planning and zoning initiatives. And we had a special meeting of the Harbor Management Commission the other day, and it was Mr. Matthews, Mr. White, and Mr. McDonald, and myself, and Mr. Stedman discussed these issues. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, John, that was a special meeting of the application review committee,
What did I say?
Harbor Management Commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I don't believe Mr. Matthews was
Yeah.
present.
Yeah, I think you're just swapping out first and last
Oh,
name.
I'm sorry. Here we go. Yeah.
Mr. Gifford.
Oh, we got Chris White. I'm sorry. Chris Wright, Chris McDonald, the Chris's, and myself, Jeff Stedman, and Matt Gifford. I'm sorry, Matt Gifford. Any event, we discussed the POCD and the plans. Now, it's a considerable deliberation. If you want, we can go over the ins and outs of that. We can give a early presentation, but we come across a sort of a consensus of the commissioners present during the discussion. And if you want, I could read our proposal to you with regard to our recommendations regarding the plan or that amendment that is planned.
I guess, John, my only quick question is maybe we read that that other letter first, specifying that, they have the opportunity to change section V or section 5,
Right.
and then go back and then go into our response from the letter, just so they kind of have some
Let me see.
background.
Get that here. Yeah. Okay. Is that?
I know you shared your screen when we
Let me get that up.
showed that letter. I think that would just give a
It
little
was,
bit
it
of,
was the referral, John.
yeah, just a little background color so that everyone understands.
All right, here, okay, this is the letter that we received from Planning and Zoning. The proposed amendment was as follows here. And this was to be added to the POCD on page 250, which would represent an item 5 in that proposal, is the implement the recommendations of the industrial zone study and the Norwalk Industrial Waterfront Land Use Plan. The city will further evaluate, modify as necessary, and implement the recommendations within these studies. That's what we had reviewed, and we had to go back and forth with regard to the various documents to see, again, how consistent much of that information was and what they were planning to do with our harbor management plan and also the Coastal Management Act. Let me put this down here. All right, and let me stop sharing there. And what we did come up with is a consensus of a proposal to move forward to the commission. Should I get that here? Everyone see that? Here, which we would like to move forward, and we have the proposed recommendations to the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission regarding the P&Z amendment proposal. And I can read through this. What's the commissioners?
I think you should read it, John, since I don't think anybody else has seen it except for the
Yes.
ARC.
Okay. So all right, I'll start. All right. So with this, everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So you probably read along with me. It says after consideration of the P&Z proposed amendment, to the POCD, the application review committee cannot make a favorable, actually, it's a favorable recommendation. That should be favorable recommendation for the following reasons. We have 5 reasons that we've outlined. The waterfront industrial land use plan, which we shorten out to the waterfront plan, does not acknowledge Norwalk's state-approved municipal coastal program prepared by the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission in accordance with the Connecticut's Coastal Management Act that must be considered when preparing POCD amendments. The second recommendation is the proposed POCD amendment would enact the recommendations outlined in the waterfront plan and concurrently stipulates that these recommendations can modified as necessary, presumably by the Planning and Zoning Department and/or Planning and Zoning Commission. This provision affords the planners significant flexibility to pursue a wide array of the actions without requiring them to amend the POCD and to respond to public comments. After the Harbor Management Commission reviewed the zoning regulations, updated public draft March 2023, that is the zoning update, it is evident that the planners intend to remove about half of the Water Street Marine Commercial District subsequent to their revision of the POCD update. This action would apparently invalidate the municipal coastal program. The fourth item, the complex developmental scenarios referred to as test fits outlined in the waterfront plan support increased development, including multifamily residential development within the special flood zone area along Water Street and the Upper Harbor shoreline. Such an approach runs counter to the basic principles of effective flood plan management and the pursuit of sound objectives for resiliency planning. Furthermore, it should be noted that the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, responsible for the administration of the Connecticut Coastal Management Act, has determined and has issued former statements in this regard to other municipalities that increased residential development in the coastal flood plan is inconsistent with goals and policies of the Coastal Management Act. As the last item, the Norwalk Harbor Management Plan, the Norwalk Harbor Management Plan supports the marine commercial zone and the application of state coastal management goals and policies to help guide waterfront land use. Therefore, if the marine commercial zone is reduced and a new urban density multi-use zone is applied to the 100-year flood plan, which would allow increased residential density in the remaining marine commercial district and elsewhere on the waterfront, this would all be inconsistent with the harbor management plan. The waterfront plan includes the following key recommendations: safeguard water-dependent activities while promoting inclusion of other uses that enhance the enjoyment of the harbor, ensure the preservation of harborside communities from unsuitable development, and maintain scenic views and visible access to the harbor. Despite the recommendations of the waterfront plan to maintain the existing configuration of the Marine Commercial District in both its northern and southern sections, the zoning update has disregarded this recommendation. Furthermore, the waterfront plan specifically addresses the waterfront of the west shore of the Upper Harbor, extending from King Industries upstream to the head of navigation. The waterfront plan recommends that this region retain its heavy industrial zone designation, allowing for continuation and investment of established resilient high industrial and marine commercial enterprises on this otherwise underutilized land. This suggestion has also been ignored, as evidenced by the proposed alterations of the zoning here in CD 5W Urban Center District in the zoning update. It is noteworthy that a significant portion of this area is within the 100-year flood plan, leading to concerns similar to those raised about the redevelopment counted in the Water Street District. I didn't have to see here.
John, may I just, before we have a discussion, there are two things that I think that you misspoke about. At the beginning, you said that the municipal coastal program, I think, was prepared by the Harbor Management Commission, but that would be a typo. It was prepared by the Norwalk Planning and Zoning Commission back in.
Where was that, Jeff?
I thought you said at the beginning,
Oh, yeah,
State
here,
approved municipal coastal
yeah,
program.
that's incorrect. No, it's the harbor management plan.
It's a municipal coastal program prepared by the Norwalk Planning and Zoning Commission, not the harbor
Not the
management.
harbor management. No, I was thinking, that was a consideration of, if there was a harbor management plan that we were referring,
No,
no.
no, no, it's a municipal
That's
coastal
correct.
program, and then also you mispronounced, instead of floodplain, you
What did
used
I
the
say?
term flood plan.
I can't see that here. With
Several times you referred to flood plan instead of floodplain.
floodplain, yeah.
Floodplain. Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can't, yeah, there we go. Oh, there it is.
John, I just made that update to the document.
Okay.
I have it up. I'm editing it right now.
Now, who was that? Who was that? Matt? Was Matt?
Chris,
So
I
Chris.
have the document here. I just made that update.
Oh,
To,
okay. Yes, all right.
the-
Yeah, I took,
and just for the record, zone, it was spelled correctly, floodplain. So
floodplain, yeah.
it's good on you, John.
Okay, prepared. That's right. There we go. Okay, I took that out. Okay. Well, those are our recommendations. If any of the questions have any comments about that or why we taken this tack, please, we can have discussion here. Mike?
Hey, John, yeah, and everybody else, what is our action tonight? Is it to get a vote, up or down vote on these recommendations? I'm concerned, I'd really like to have time to kind of read over all this. This is certainly not the first time we're seeing the waterfront industrial, land use plan and all of that, but just to kind of fully.
I should send these to all the commission members for certainly their review instead of, is that, no, this is sort of after a considerable amount of deliberation that we went through the other night,
The action tonight is an up or down vote on the proposed amendment is to incorporate the waterfront study into the P O C D. That's the up or down vote.
That was the question.
With the
Okay,
language
thank
that has been proposed, sent to us from planning and zoning.
Jeff.
I see.
Well,
Thanks.
just to respond to Mike, the timing is such that we understand that a public hearing will be held on this prior to the next Harbor Commission meeting. And that's why the referral was given to us right before the last commission meeting in July. And there's a 35-day comment period that's provided. So it was our understanding that unless there was a desire to have a special meeting before the public hearing, that this was the night to comment on it. But that, there's always a possibility of a special meeting.
And I think, Mike, we just wanted to understand it a little bit better and, digest it as it looks like you're looking for as well. And just me personally, the biggest thing that stuck out, and there was a lot of things that stuck out, but was that they can make any changes as deemed necessary in the future for any reason without any public comment, Harbor Commission or anything. And that was just a game, changer for me when we went through this so many different times. And that's why, instead of rewriting everything, we came to the agreement that we should just state that we're not supporting it. And here are a handful of the justification reasons why we can't support it.
But the two principal concerns, I think, besides what Matt just stated, is the reduction in the marine commercial zoning district.
Well, that was
which was the purpose of or led to the approval of the municipal coastal program by DEEP, and also the proposal that would increase the multifamily or replace the marine commercial district with a urban density mixed use district, which would allow for increased residential development in the 100-year floodplain, which is the subject of a resiliency study now, and also would put that same zoning district on the Upper Harbor shoreline, also within the 100-year floodplain. So it was always our understanding that the purpose of, not always, but recent investigations, including discussions with Circa, that the purpose of a resiliency planning effort is not to create the conditions that would enable additional development, but to create the conditions and make recommendations to accelerate recovery of existing development and to reduce the vulnerability of existing development, but not to, so we thought it was a conflict between the goals of a resiliency study and the zoning, and also the elimination of half of the marine commercial district.
Well, I hope you captured much of that in that statement, Jeff, in the.
Yeah, I understand, John. I just thought I'd mention that. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, John, the other thing, I'm not sure if that drawing was available, but the drawing that you showed us the other night that had the existing space and then the space once it's revised to the size that they're looking to downsize to for marine, that was also very impressive. That's a big space, both East Norwalk and South Norwalk.
Yeah, well, that was in there. That was in the plan to cut down over 50% of the waterfront.
Yeah.
You need numbers. It's 9.88 acres that will be changed from marine commercial to CD5W to the urban density. It's almost 10 acres.
10 acres? Okay.
I see a hand up.
We've got a hand up.
Oh, it's me, sorry. I had my camera off, I didn't realize. Is it okay if I ask a question?
Uh-oh. Yes, it is, Steve.
I promise it'll be a very fair, nice question. I'm misunderstanding one thing. What do you mean by can just change things in the future without any public comment or representation? I'm paraphrasing, but if you could clarify that, that would be helpful.
Well, the language is modify the recommendations. And looking at the waterfront industrial study and then looking at the proposed zoning, the rezoning plan, to the modification of the changes is pretty substantial. The modifications of the recommendations is pretty substantial. And so it seems like the latitude that's being exercised is excessive in our opinion.
That first letter you shared, John, shows the statement that he was just asking about.
Yeah, just to clarify one thing, perhaps you probably weren't aware of kind of how it all kind of came to be, so that the modification to the plan of conservation development has to get referred out to, in this case, to Harbor, since it's, directly affecting the waterfront. And also, several other bodies, including Common Council. And Common Council had a different vision than for the kind of upper half, or I guess the upper half of the north of Water Street there, which kind of precipitated the change. So that's reflected in the memo that was sent to you, and as well as consistent with what the draft zoning is. So, but no change can get approved to the POCD, the zoning map, or the zoning text without referrals to all relevant bodies, as well as public hearings and public comment.
Well, I'm not sure what the point is of adopting a plan that's already been ignored.
Well, the plan is subject to change up until the Planning and Zoning Commission holds their public hearing. Planning and Zoning Commission is not bound by what Common Council says. They're a referral agency in this process as well. The commission would have to supermajority vote, I think, which would be the same thing if they decided to go against your recommendation. So it kind of they're kind of trying to weave between people with different visions of what should occur on those properties. So it's not a perfect process, but it's what we have to deal with.
Sure. So how do we vote we're trying to figure out how to voice our objection in this process.
Yes, I think you've done that in your letter. So the Planning and Zoning Commission, when they hold their public hearing on the proposed amendment, is going to have to consider this, and they need to be aware that if they're going to go with the changes as recommended by council, then they'll have to do, they need a supermajority vote for that as well. I think it's 2/3. It might be supermajority, whatever the number is.
That's correct.
So they have to do that either way, either in support or either ignoring what council says and going with what the initial recommendation was, or ignoring your concerns and going with what council decides to do.
May I say something? I think the only way we're gonna get away with it, to get anything done is, we're probably gonna have to get a bunch of us go house to house and get petitions signed enough to say, listen, you're gonna hire people that are water bound. This shellfish industry is the oldest industry in Connecticut. You're gonna take that away? That's what makes Norwalk. Why do we have an oyster festival? I mean, I just don't understand it. We either have to start going door to door, because I know majority of people don't even want this. Majority of people don't even know what they're talking about is the problem.
Well,
I just,
And this wasn't intended to be a full review of the proposed rezoning plan. There's a lot of other things in the proposed rezoning plan, including what's, including the allowed uses of the 5W and 4W, which we didn't include in here. We didn't get into that level of detail. This was just trying to looking at the waterfront access, the waterfront industrial study, which is what's being incorporated into the POCD at this point, and saying, is this document is it both complete enough to be incorporated, and do we think that it will actually be implemented? And so the first couple points are what we think is lacking in the waterfront study, and then the last section was ways in which the waterfront industrial study is already and by extension the POCD is already being ignored in the redevelopment and the rezoning plan.
Yeah.
So, we're being asked to incorporate this plan into the POCD, and its recommendations are already not being followed. So what's the point? That's where this is in some regard it's a protest to get our point made in front of the zoning commission. And I think that our commission should also come up with a full set of comments about things like the fact that there will be shellfish processing will no longer be allowed in East Norwalk. For example, or that there won't be any storage allowed in the 5W district, or boat repair. Things like that are problematic to say the least. And then
Wasn't
there's
that
all the
boat
issues with
storage also,
floodplain.
Chris?
What's that?
Would that also boat storage?
I can pull up the list, but there's the list of things that are not allowed in the 5W or the 4W, which is East Norwalk.
It seems like most of the things that are going on Water Street and in East Norwalk today.
Right. You can have you can basically have you can have a boat slip, but you can't have boat repair. You can't have boat storage. You can't have shellfish processing. You can't have a whole slew of port related activities that will no longer be allowed in the northern part of Water Street or in East Norwalk. There's a matrix, and I'm not quoting it 100% accurately, but that's the general idea.
Jeff, did you have anything? You had your hand up. Yes.
Steve has his hand up. I don't know if he had that up from before.
Yeah, so Mr. McDonald is correct that the current draft does not have those I would call it water dependent uses allowed in 5W, but the recommendation that we've put back into the zoning rewrite is to allow them in 5W. So basically marine commercial would, the uses allowed today in marine commercial would carry forward onto the upper part of Water Street as well. So you could do those. You're not eliminating them. They won't become non-conforming if any of them exist today.
How about 4W, Steve?
4W, no, but thinking about what the zoning is over there now, I don't think any of those uses, if you're talking specifically about Bloom, I don't think that's technically an allowed use today over there. So I don't think there's any impact on the changes with the regulations.
So shellfish processing isn't allowed in neighborhood commercial now, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so
I
would
didn't
look at
dig
that.
into what neighborhood commercial allows, but
Yeah, I think we'd look at that as, and I can go back and I'm sure they predate zoning, I would imagine. More than likely, they're legally non-conforming to what they do today. I can double check that, but just top of my head, I think that's probably the case.
My God. Jeff,
Just, yeah, I'm sorry to go on about this, but in response to Matt's question, Steve, or concern, when you read the language of the proposed change to the POCD, it talks about implementing the recommendations of this study, and then it goes on to say, as may be modified. So that's the open-ended concern that was raised, that it doesn't say to be modified based on review or by following review or public comment. It just implies that it can be that study, which is separate, would be referenced in the POCD, can be modified, and that was a concern. And then some other comments I might mention. At the application review committee meeting, we had a long discussion, and if people are interested, they might want to look at the recording about the history of the marine commercial zone and the relationship to the Municipal Coastal Program and the Coastal Management Act. So yes, the Harbor Commission you mentioned the review comments by the commission and others, but DEEP will also have a comment to make on this with respect to what the proposal with respect to its consistency with the Coastal Management Act. Now, those are, again, advisory comments that you can overrule, but that's another set of comments to consider. And then the other issue, in addition to the water dependent issue, is the basic issue having to do with floodplain management. And is it appropriate to increase residential density in an area that you know is subject to frequent flooding? And then the only other point I'd make now is at the beginning of the meeting, Ms. Lauricella talked about she thinks that or said that she believes that waterfront industrial study is incomplete or in error by not properly identifying hazardous waste sites. Now that's a separate issue really from the Harbor Management Commission. And I don't know how that will be addressed, but
Can I answer that one really quick? That's okay? Yeah, I'm not sure how this hasn't registered yet, but the report doesn't ignore the fact that there might be contaminated properties on there. The problem is that there are no listed sites. So we were there was an old inventory of potential contaminated properties that the redevelopment agency had that was from either the 1990s or the 1980s. No one could verify the data. We've followed up with DEEP multiple times just to verify that they don't have listed sites on any of the properties in the study area, and they don't. So we were not going to include properties that were not listed sites because I think it would be wholly irresponsible, I should say, of the city to say, well, this is a contaminated site or a brownfield site when we don't have any data to say that it is. But again, we're not saying that there aren't sites that may be contaminated there. I'm sure there are, but there's nothing listed or identified. So we're not going to include something in the report without data to back it up. I think that puts us in kind of a, if I was a property owner and my property wasn't a listed site or maybe even not even contaminated, I would be kind of upset if you listed it as potentially that in a study.
Yeah, and again, the committee's recommendation that was put forth about a finding of not being able to make a favorable recommendation is not based on the issue of contaminated sites, but with respect to the open-endedness of the actual approval or actual amendment that's proposed, but also the concern about the reduction of the marine commercial district and putting the additional development in the floodplain. So the harbor management plan supports the marine commercial district, and it also supports the application of the state's coastal management policies for guiding waterfront land use. So those are the two significant
that's why
points that we were talking about. And then just small points in the study, it describes the harbor management plan in the section on state plans. Now that's easily corrected, but it's not correct to indicate that the harbor management plan is a state plan. But that's a minor point, Steve, that could be easily corrected.
And I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you that you should not put your letter together or support it or anything. I understand and expected kind of the comments that you're putting together. And, it's, again, I serve 90 something plus thousand masters. So trying to get consensus on things, especially something like this, is not easy. So that's what the plan tries to be, a compromise of what everybody wants. I understand it's not gonna meet everybody's expectations and desires, but you know, this was what was recommendations that came back through another body that also has say over how the city's land develops as well.
No, the points that we put in the letter, Steve, are basically just to address that one issue as far as the POCD and the going back and forth between these two documents. And there seemed to be like a circuitous route, that there wasn't any kind of requirement to make changes in that POCD, but you can change it at will. There was.
Yeah. I don't have a problem if that last bit of the POCD amendment itself comes out, that's fine.
But mostly, again, you know, we basically follow again the Harbor Management Plan and then the Connecticut Coastal Management Act with regard to maintaining the stability of that marine commercial district. You know, and so again, as I think as Steve pointed out, you know, we are a shellfish-oriented community, but I was happy to hear that the provisions were made not to preclude, I should say, you know, the use of any oyster development or, you know, oyster shell, you know. But,
yeah, when that zone, the 5W zone was put together, it wasn't envisioned for the north part of Water Street. So it wasn't we intended to leave it out, but when the recommendation from council came to look at the north part of Water Street differently, that's when we had to kind of rethink the zone itself and make some changes to it. So we've actually like drop the allowed height down. So you can't, even though the density goes up to some degree, the allowed height goes down. So you can't get the same density just because the height's lower, you know, you can't fit as many units in there. So we are trying to be cognizant of some of these things. And, you know, we're not ignorant to the fact that the area floods and could flood in the future. You know, we're going to have requirements for dry access, safe routes out of those properties if and when they do develop. So we're not blind or ignorant to any of those concerns.
Steve, let me ask you, I read through the rezoning plan and I could not find a stated maximum height for the 5W. It gives a whole bunch of, you know, bit by bit, you know, maximum 3 feet for ground floor, maximum 25 feet for first floor, maximum 10 feet finished floor to finish ceiling for the next, you know, if you add all that up, add up interstitial space, you know, you're up around 85 feet. And
yeah, I think we were, the only thing we haven't settled on yet, and it's more of a design debate than anything else, is it would be a 4 to 4.5 story building. So we wouldn't approach that. So that the ground floor might have additional height, but then the upper floors are generally, we're maxing out at like 10 to 12 feet. And the only reason that would be 4 versus 4.5 is if you go 4 stories, you get a flat roof no matter what. And if you go half stories, you allow somebody to do some kind of peaked roof. So it leads to just a better design. So that it's not a 6-story building, what you see on the other side of Water Street. It's not, it's kind of lower to keep the visibility a little bit less.
So when will this revised plan be out? Because, you know, so that's not what's in the one on the street now.
Yeah, so any changes, so that's more reflective in the zoning rewrite as opposed to the waterfront plan, because the waterfront plan doesn't get into this.
Now looking at the waterfront plan, I'm looking at the rezoning one, the March document.
Yeah, so the Planning and Zoning Commission right now is going through and talking about edits to the plan. So over the next 2 months to 3 months, they'll be looking at, you know, we have a whole myriad of different questions and issues that have popped up. So they're going through and talking about them and saying, yes, we agree, not agree. And then we're going to publish going like a rolling list of the changes that are going to be made. And then that'll go back out to public hearing late fall would be my guess, or early winter, however you want to call it.
So when is it appropriate for us to chime in? Because half of the comments that I have sounds like they're already being addressed. And certainly I'm not going to, you know, I don't want to make a comment that's going to be addressed, but I also want to make sure that my comment is addressed.
I mean, if you want to email me whatever you want to send now, and I can tell you what's been addressed and not addressed and point you to that. And then if you feel you want to further comment, you can, you know, you can aid. Yeah, obviously should do so as a commission. And then also you're more than welcome to as a, you know, citizen anyway, and just provide comments to the commission.
Yeah, Steve, we're at the up against the kind of the wall here with a end of a comment period. information that sort of changes on the fly. So it's a question of what we, how we respond to this referral you've given us.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
this is what we need to, that's our charge right now, Alan. I'd like to see whether we should move forward with the comments that the art review had, the application review committee had come forward with, to submit to planning and zoning, or what the commission's pleasures are. I mean, we have clear recommendations.
Well, what's the comment period we're up against?
so it's just for right now, the only thing technically under consideration is the amendment to the P O C D itself, which is really that 2-sentence change that I think was up on the screen earlier. But that, that is inclusive of the plan itself. So, if you have, I think you've addressed those in your letter, which you have concerns with regarding the plan. The draft zoning map, which we sent on just to say, here's what we're thinking longer term. And I'm not sure, I think Brian was I might've been at the same meeting a couple months ago where we kind of previewed Brian Baker from our staff came and previewed, here's what the zoning is thinking for the area. Here's the process. So that hearing on that has not, the final hearing on that has not occurred yet. So you're not under the gun to provide comments on the zoning regulations and map change itself.
Right, well then, Jeff?
I just say from what it's worth, what I say is that those are technical aspects and things can change, but the two things that I don't believe are going to change is that it's proposed to eliminate half of the marine commercial zone, and it's proposed to increase the residential density in the 100-year floodplain. At the same time that everybody's focused on sea level rise and resiliency and sustainability. And that to me is just a basic conflict between two different goals. So to say that we're going to tweak the zoning, but I just think that if it's proposed to eliminate half of the marine commercial district and replace it with a urban density mixed use district, that's inconsistent with the harbor management plan. And also, if it's determined that DEEP makes a statement that this is inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act, then that's further.
Can I comment on that?
Details are.
I understand your concerns, and I am not arguing with that aspect of it, but I think that's DEEP's role to comment if they think something's inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act in terms of the density or not the density. I mean, if you think about South Norwalk in particular, if you think about where that location is, we understand it's floodplain and there's risk building there, but it's not like you abandon the coast and you don't do it, especially when it's some of the most valuable land in the city in proximity to a mass transit station. And the other aspect, which I think gets completely ignored all the time by DEEP and this kind of referral, is the water quality aspect. When you think about all those properties you're talking about, I would say it's probably 100% impervious surface, and whatever drop of water hits the ground there goes right into the sound without any treatment or any protection. So, that seems to get ignored. I think that would be something that this commission would be very concerned about as well.
Well, here's another thing. Why would you want to make more density when only 40% of all these apartments that they built are being used now? Why don't you just hold back and wait?
I don't believe that's anywhere close to an accurate figure.
Oh, yes, it is.
All right, so we're getting a little bit off our topic,
Which
right?
is outside of your jurisdiction.
Let's come back.
John,
Let's come back. to what we-
John, I think to move forward, we should just call the question and look for a motion and
Well,
have a vote.
that's what I'd like to do. We can have a discussion about other things later on, but I think we need to address the recommendations that the application review committee had put forward, to the commission, full commission, whether it should move forward with regard to this amendment to the POCD, that letter that was send that particular letter to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're certainly under the gun to make a response in that with regard to that amendment.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion that we send that letter to Planning and Zoning as drafted by the application review committee, with the recommendation that we're rejecting, and I don't know what the right way to say it is. Are we rejecting the language? Are we, recommending that it not be incorporated into the POCD as stated not be,
no,
the language not be adopted for the reasons stated in the letter?
That's what we have.
I thought it was not able to make a favorable
Can't make a favorable
recommendation for the reasons
Well,
stated.
no, we're not recommending anything. We're,
No.
you know, well, if, yeah, maybe it's a recommendation, fine.
Because that's what triggers the 2/3 vote by the approving agency is a favorable or unfavorable
Unfavorable
recommendation.
recommendation
Okay, then, yes,
Then
an unfavorable recommendation.
for the reasons that we state here in
The
the.
reason stated in the letter. So I make that motion.
I'll second.
All right. Any other comment?
and
Discussion.
I just want to ask the question, are you the subcommittee that met? Are you,
No, it wasn't,
Comfortable with
not
it.
originally the subcommittee. This was the ARC.
okay, the ARC Review Committee?
Right.
That was the special meeting, I should say.
Special meeting, right, it wasn't a
Okay.
sub. This was a special.
Even with, okay, I'm just, because I'm new to hearing
Yeah, we
much
have
of
four-
this
we have
tonight. So
four-
even with
Yeah.
the clarifications that you've heard tonight, you still, you want to use the same language. I just want to clarify that, Chris.
That's right. Everything is down here on paper. They can do with it what they want, basically. But we cannot make a favorable recommendation for the reasons that we state here, Laurie. We were only 4 commissioners that were present at the, and this is why you have to bring it forward to the entire commission.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a
Motion on the floor.
motion on the floor.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
Any hands up?
What, all those in favor? For the motion? Aye. Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And any opposed, opposition? Abstention?
Opposed.
Opposed, Mike? Aye.
Yep.
So noted, Lori?
I voted in support of it. I think there have been clarifications, but I support and vote of submitting the letter.
So moved? All right,
So move.
all right. So we'll get a copy and I'll send a copy to all our commission members for, again, the review, but this is the letter that we'll get out and comment.
And the standard part of all those letters, John, ends with the commission reserves its right to continue to review
Review.
as additional information.
As additional information comes forward.
That's the sort of the boilerplate on all these letters. That reserve the right to continue to review as additional information is provided.
All right, John, is our application reviewed complete?
I'd like to, well, we have a charge, Alan, that is required to complete by August 31st. And I thought it would take very quick response from the commission to address this point, and that deals with the water runoff on Route 7 and Route 15 that the state plans to do. That's the environmental impact evaluation statement that they made. And what I would like to do is to present.
John, I'm sorry, that's really not on our agenda for this evening.
I know, but I was hoping that we can make a sort of recommendation that we review this now. It would take 5 minutes, perhaps.
I think we should move on. Again, no one has had the opportunity to prepare for discussion on that.
Then a suggestion, John, might be the need to see if we could have a special meeting, since that's a significant project.
This is, it's dealing with water runoff that's going to affect Norwalk Harbor upstream, basically. All right, we can make a special meeting for that.
Or, yeah. I believe, I'm not sure, never mind, I'm sorry, my mind is wandering. In the interests of time, I don't really have a chairperson's report. I just would like to, I've been gone for a few weeks vacationing and examining the harbors in Connecticut. I just would like to thank all the people who've covered for me in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm very grateful for that. Staff reports. Bruce Lavallo, he's not here. Owen is going to take his, Owen Lee is going to report in Harbor Master Lavallo's stead. Owen.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Owen Lee, Deputy Harbor Master. Ruth gave me a couple points that have been taken care of today. The transient moorings have all been numbered. We've also received a 5-star rating for the harbor locations, so that's wonderful. There's a 30-foot sailboat in the South Anchorage that was abandoned. The gentleman paid for the mooring. We're just waiting for him to remove said vessel. We received a couple complaints from the United Marine regarding rowers and a chase boat that's been referred to the Norwalk Marine Division for police action. We've met several times with the city regarding the Amistad visit, reviewed the safety plan and some concerns from all parties involved. Legal mooring was pulled from 34 Shorefront Park. I guess that was 2 weeks ago. Norm Edwards submitted a bill for $325 for the removal of said equipment. And we received a bill for $1,306 for 2 moorings that were placed off of Sheffield. Also, 2 abandoned moorings were removed off of Marvin Beach. And that's what Bruce has to report as of this date.
Any questions for Owen? Any hands? All right, thanks, Owen.
No worries. Thank you.
Consultant Stedman, you're on.
Well, I'll try to keep this brief, of course. Maybe some of you saw the article in the Greenwich newspaper on Sunday on the front page about the effects of the lawsuit and the court decision in Greenwich on harbor management authorities. I thought it was accurate, but we still haven't reached an agreement or a resolution of this issue. So we're going to need to pursue, I say we, the harbor commissions throughout the state, pursue this issue in the next legislative session. And through the Harbor Management Association that John is the president of, we've reached out to DEEP for further discussions, but don't have a response. That's one topic. The other topic is, and Chris I guess Chris will talk about this in the report on the street end study about the meeting that we had. That study is funded by a grant from the Connecticut Port Authority. And we were hoping that there would be future grants from the Port Authority for the implementation of any recommendations from that, and also for the rebuilding of the Veterans Park Marina. But what was of concern is that the project manager of the Port Authority, and the only person with real maritime experience and who was managing the ship grants, was reassigned to the Department of Transportation. So that now there's no person with maritime experience or managing these projects at the Port Authority. And there were several speakers at a meeting of the Port Authority expressing concern about that and hoping that they could retain the person who was transferred, but they didn't. Another topic is the mooring permits that will be issued by the harbor master for the DOT mooring barges. And I think Mr. Bardish will talk a little bit about that. He received a letter today from the shellfish the principal shellfish business. I'll defer to Steve on that. And then we just keep working on all the projects that are of interest to the commission. Thank you.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff. Moving right along, the days are getting shorter, aren't they? Chairman Bartosh from the Shellfish Commission.
Thank you, Chairman Kibbe. So we took no action during our last meeting, so have no report on any resolutions. As Mr. Stedman mentioned, we have received a letter in support of permit conditions for the stationing of barges for the Walkwood Bridge project, both in and outside Norwalk Harbor, out at Greens Ledge. And as this commission may remember, the Shellfish Commission resolved that a bond should be posted equal to 50% of the value of Norwalk's annual harvest, or $8 million. That's all I have. Permits are available still at Fisherman's World. There's still some summer and warm water left to get in there. And And for closures, please call 203-838-9807. Eat Norwalk Shellfish, and I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Bardish. Any questions for Steve? No, everybody's quiet time. No, nobody's, Mr. Mangles, mooring and harbor safety.
Thank you, Mr. Kibbe. So moorings, as you know, we have Dakwa installed now, and we with the help of Harbor Master Lavallo, we have I painted and marked the mooring balls so that everyone who is going to be a transient mooring person can actually find them. So far, we've had some really good success with that. So there has been quite a number of transient boaters coming to Norwalk, and then with the helps of Recreation and Parks, they have a place to tie up. We worked with Recreation and Parks. They posted the signs that we needed to have posted by deep, and they also stenciled the area of the docks over there at the ramp, so where the dinghies for the transients can be tied up. We had our just today we had another 5-star review. This is sort of a learning curve with the new positions of the mooring, so we are going to have to separate a couple of them and sort of work with what we have as far as area to accommodate the larger vessels. We had a 50-footer on just yesterday, I think, or today's 23rd. They left today. Other than that, I don't have anything else to really report.
Any questions for Jeff? Mr. McDonald,
Yes, sir. Which hat am I wearing now?
you're gonna put on your money hat,
Money hat, treasurer. Okay.
the Scrooge hat, Scrooge hat.
Sure thing. Let me get my Scrooge McDuck out. We had a good month for Seatwise. We got the last payment for the second payment from the Norwalk Yacht Club for $12,918. And the only expenditures we had were for the summer interns, Telesco, and something labeled Earth Place Beach Sample. And presumably that's also part of the summer intern program. So the expenditures were $2,272. Sorry, Jeff, that your payment did not get processed faster. I'm not sure why that didn't happen more promptly. So Jeff Stedman's anticipated expenditure won't, I guess, hit till next month. Jeff did let me know that there'll be a Dakwa payment of something like $150 pending. Hopefully with the Easter Festival and other things going on, end of the summer, we'll have some more receipts from that. And that's all I know on that. A question for things like the Norm Edwards expenses in terms of moorings and all that. Does that get cycled through the Harbor Commission's general budget, or is there another special budget for that?
That goes through the regular commission budget. We sort of keep track of the keep that separately from the revenue from the other things. That's all. So we can account for the revenue from Dakwa and those transit moorings against expenses.
So we will see the. I mean, we have one account, which is sort of the running balance, but I'll track it all the same way it's been tracked. So that does get paid out of the regular account. Okay. So there'll be some future expenses dealing with Norm Edwards maintaining the moorings.
Chris.
Okay.
Owen Lee, the gentleman who was at that mooring paid in excess of $340 last week. So just for situational awareness, the boat was marked as abandoned transient, and it was placed on a ball, and he paid us in excess of $340.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. All right, I don't have anything else in terms of treasurer.
How about plans and recommendations?
Okay, the Amistad is coming very soon. I think it arrives the 5th or 6th before the Oyster Festival. There will be some public dates for touring it outside of that. So it'll be open for tours during the Oyster Festival as part of admission to the Oyster Festival. Outside of that time, and I posted it on Facebook. I just been doing some publicity on my own. I don't know who's running our Facebook site and what other places we can post information on the visit. Is that you, Mike?
Yeah, that's me. Not doing a great job, but that's the next update, Chris.
All right. Yeah. And the Amistad site have a I forget what the name of they use a site where you can sign up for actual times to visit the ship, because it is a limited amount of people at any given time that can go on and view it. And I believe they have times listed, I think Wednesday and Thursday prior to the festival. They don't have any times after the festival, although internally we've talked about them having some viewing times after the festival as well, probably starting Tuesday or maybe Wednesday, because the park's still probably not accessible on Monday right after the festival. There's so much work going on there. But thanks to the harbor master and deputy harbor master for working with the folks at the Donovan Center to clean up some logistical issues and all. And so I think we're all set there. I need to I'm going to work out the last little details about the steps to get from the dock to the barge. But so yeah, Amistad is a go. It'll be here and gone before we meet next time. So please come down and have a look at it. The street end study. So there was a kickoff meeting for that last week. A bit to my surprise is that there was a parallel effort going on within the city. I guess headed up by Jessica Vonasek at Economic Redevelopment, to also look at the harbor. So the proposal that came out of from the city is that we combine our effort and task into this larger and that they're also in the RFP process. So they don't have a consultant on board yet, but to include our street end as a task within a larger city project. I'm okay with that. I'm going to talk to Jessica next week about it. She's out on vacation this week. I was on vacation last week. So we haven't had a chance to actually speak about it and how this might work. My question is, and hopefully maybe Jeff can answer this. And is there anybody at the Connecticut Port Authority who could answer this, would that be okay in terms of our state grant to have it as a discrete task, but part of a larger project, because this is all reimbursable. So we would have to have deliverables and some type of product that is unique to our task and our scope, even if it's done as part of a larger project. It seems feasible, but the people signing the check have to, I think, agree to this. Do you have a comment on that, Jeff?
I'll try. I know the executive director, and I'll call him tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. $44,000 is a nice piece of money, but it's not going to buy you a whole lot. And I think we'll get a better group of we'll get better consultant selection if it's part of a bigger project and part of a bigger scope, and there's some economy of scale there and everything else. So as much as I wanted this to be my little pet project, I'm happy to work with Jessica and the city on a bigger picture for this.
Chris?
Yeah.
It just, the word you might use is running the two projects in parallel rather than subordinating one to the other just to make it more palatable. Just say, a parallel kind of thing. Just a thought.
Well, it'll be one contract. That's why one contract, one solicitation with a
And
discrete task within it. I mean, that's, if we need to sell it some way, sell it whatever way you want. But I wanted to be clear on what's going to happen.
you might mention, Chris, that larger study was described to us as a harbor development plan.
Okay.
So the
Yeah.
role of the Harbor Commission in anything that's done of that sort would have to be significant.
Right. So yeah, I'll talk to Jessica next. We have a meeting scheduled with her to go through that and all, and get a better understanding of exactly what the scope of her job is and how we can incorporate our discrete street ends work into that. The third thing is the resilient SONO, resilient South Norwalk study. So that I'm a little late on this, but they're still preparing the draft final. I realized that today and quickly wrote up some comments that I don't know if I need formal approval. Do you guys want to hear what I'm talking about in this? On a really high level, I'm commenting on the fact that they need to do in terms of the flooding on Water Street. I think one of the first steps to prevent the nuisance flooding is to put backflow preventers on the outfalls, so that on every lunar high tide or king tide, we're not having water backflowing through our drainage system and flooding Water Street. I mean, outside of storms like Hurricane Sandy, when you actually overtop the seawall and water floods the entire neighborhood, Water Street floods because of a not properly functioning drainage system. And that's really low hanging fruit, and that would take care of 95% of the nuisance flooding on Water Street. So that's my first comment. And the other one, I commented on the proposals to raise streets to create an egress corridor. And this is primarily from the neighborhoods Woodward Ave South, where Woodward Ave is the only means of egress for a good part of Harbor Shores, Village Creek, and Harbor View. And with a 100-year storm flooding of 3 to 5 feet, basically all those neighborhoods would be cut off. So they've proposed a corridor that which would include raising Woodward Avenue between Sable Street and Loud Street in front of the industrial zone there. My recommendation is to extend that the raising of that through Longshore Avenue all the way to Harbor View, which is the most exposed, most vulnerable neighborhood in terms of storms. And then it would include the corridor would then go up Loud Street, up over Quintard where there's high ground. But then you come down into Water Street, which is still at a low point, and they talk about raising Water Street and Concord Street at the very southern end of Water Street. And then Concord Street would be raised so that you could egress all the way to South Main Street. And I think in terms of emergency management, emergency preparedness and all that, having hurricane egress or to be able to get emergency vehicles into neighborhoods in the event of this. I know I lived in Village Creek during Hurricane Sandy, and you couldn't leave for several hours. I know somebody tried and their car stalled out on Woodward Avenue. That's really not an acceptable situation in terms of emergency management. So those are the two things I commented on that we're, in theory, we're in favor of the street raising for emergency preparedness, and that in fact should include egress all the way from Harbor View. That's more than in a nutshell. That's basically that's basically the details of the comment. Go ahead.
Well,
I just had a question about how much they're talking about raising. I thought at one point it was 3 feet, and I'm questioning whether or not that's enough.
I didn't look at it like, each segment about how much they needed to raise. I don't know whether I sort of looked a little bit more into the Woodward Avenue, because that's a bigger, well, Water Street around Burritt would be in Concord. There'd be a lot of work there because there's a lot of property frontage, as opposed to a more less dense neighborhood. But it was 3 to 5 feet in the Woodward Avenue corridor. I'm not sure what it is on the Concord and Water Street.
Okay, thanks.
So anyways,
Jeff.
that'll be my / the Harbor Commission's response to the resiliency study.
Chris,
I didn't-
what are the prospects? Isn't Water Street a state road?
You mentioned that the other night, and I did note that Water Street and Bird Ave are part of 136, and DOT is responsible for any modifications to those streets. And I also talked about my knowledge of the water, the Woodward Ave Industrial Park there is a covenant deeded property that was originally sold off by the Village Creek Corporation. And there's 100-foot setback for that. There's some details with that. I just tried to contribute some local knowledge that I had.
But the proposal is not, well, the suggestion or the idea is not to raise the entire length of Water Street up to.
No, it's
just the bottom part, the
Just
southern part of it.
the southern part. So that one block between Burritt and Concord, and then raising Concord to the west, so that you could get from Quintard and with the rest of this corridor all the way from any of the other neighborhoods, all the way up to South Main Street, where, you know, obviously where the police department is and other things like that. And you could and you would have a high water egress for that entire corridor. You know, I'm not sure why we don't have I mean, I think there's hurricane evacuation hostings on Gregory Boulevard, but there's nothing for the west side of the harbor, to my knowledge. And there is somebody from the emergency management part of the city government here, and I know they're going to chime in more on that specifically. So yeah, those are my comments on the resiliency study. And yeah, that's it for my elements of
Questions for Chris. Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? I appreciate you juggling so many hats. You know, you look like a pole in the closet, if you will. Appreciate all the work you do.
Spinning plates.
Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, now to the laggard of the group here with the newsletter, the one-person communications committee. So instead of just saying, hey, another month, another meeting without a newsletter, decided to take some action here and get a little bit of backup, learn something about our newest commissioner, Chris White, who has quite a bit of professional experience with media and is kind of a dream pickup as far as sharing the responsibility of the newsletter. So we had a good meeting earlier, and we're going to go ahead over the next couple of weeks and really get a game plan in motion for how to provide a quarterly newsletter, get Facebook started, and get rolling on it. So appreciate that, Chris. I have no other updates at this time.
Yeah, in my vacation, I visited a lot of harbors, and I did come back with some newsletters from other harbor management commissions, which I picked up along the way for you guys. So it just gives an idea of what other municipalities are doing. So I'll share that. I guess I will have to hook up somewhere at a coffee shop and hand them past paper. Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for Mike?
Well, just one thing I do think before, obviously, so Mike and I, you spoke, we're going to meet and put together a little bit of a communication strategy here and hammer some stuff out so we have a bit of regularity, but it would be great to, just in the interim, jump on anything that we can to kind of promote just, the Amistad being there, tours, things of that nature. If there's anything immediately happening with the Oyster Fest that we want to promote, just given the time sensitivity there, you know, we'll act on that as well to make sure that we can get some communication out around those things.
And I think we could do something about the Docwa connection and the transit moorings, since I think we have the rough spots worked out. We have a little run time with that and it works. We seem to know what we're doing, so we could promote that a little bit. Give it some space.
I was also, and Jeff, we can connect on this. I was looking over kind of like, you know, our presence on Docwa and that kind of stuff. And there are, you know, a couple of the photos are kind of blurry, you know, I think we can do a little bit to just dial it up from, you know, just from a presentation standpoint, to just make it a little bit more palatable to someone looking for a place to tie up. So maybe we can talk about that offline, just to how to, you know, get that kind of stuff done.
Yep,
Beautiful.
absolutely.
See, Alan, see, Chair, he's already working his magic. Perfect.
I know, I see that. He's got you under his, you know, under control. Joe Schneerling, water quality.
Thank you, Chairman. We had an interesting meeting. But before I start on the meeting, just to give you a rough idea of where we are. The last time, for the last meeting, you had a water temperature of 78 degrees and the dissolved oxygen in the harbor at the aquarium was 0.1. And right now, the temperature this afternoon was 74 degrees on the surface and 73.75 on the bottom. So the temperature is going down, the dissolved oxygen is slowly creeping up. Luckily, we have not had large schools of Menhaden that have come in. So we haven't had the floating bodies that we've had historically. But the Oyster Festival is in here, and they may be waiting for the Oyster Festival, which they did way back in the beginning. Many of us are laughing, some of you that are new to the area. It was so bad. How bad was it? It was so bad. You could smell dead fish over a mile away. And they had to get commercial fishermen in just to drag the bodies out. Millions and millions of dead fish. So moving on. The present condition of the Water Quality Committee, we're still down three members, excuse me. And if anybody on the Harbor Commission wants to join us, please, you're more than welcome. We had reports from Harbor Commission. Jeff went over the plans for Eversource and what they were going to do. And as he did that, it made me realize it would be an advantage for the Harbor Commission to have Eversource put markers, just like the U.S. Geodetic Survey does when they put markers in the ground, indicating where the cable is on one side of the harbor, and then on the east side of the harbor, and then on the west side. So at some point, should we have to do any piling replacement or any digging, you at least have a line of sight of where the cable should be. When the aquarium wanted to put in bigger pilings for the bigger boat, they had to do an at random sampling and they never found the cables. So somewhere under the dock where the Spirit of the Sound is, there are cables, but we don't know where. So this way you'd at least know where for future work. The other thing is planning. We talked about the planning and zoning and the recommendations. We did not have any one person that was in favor of increasing the population density on Water Street. And it also raised the point we had in discussion that one of the issues Norwalk has historically is a lack of park space and open space for the size of population. And by increasing our population, we are still decreasing that ratio. So that the more people you keep packing in, the more Norwalk doesn't look favorably as far as having open space and park space for recreation. We had The DPW had offered a plant tour of the treatment plant, but no one, there were only 3 people that signed up. They refused to do that for just 3 people. And let's see, under new business. He just left. Did all of you get the new thing from the state as far as PFAS regulations? Okay. I'll make sure the chairman gets a copy of it and he can disperse it. I don't have all of your email addresses, so it's best to do it that way. But the state just put out recommendations for PFAS. And this is an ongoing thing. It's the present regulations right now. How they will go up or down, we don't know. And Dick Harris is waiting on the results from a $75 test that he was able to find, and he's going to compare that to the more expensive $270 test for PFAS. So far, he has found that the results are not the same, but the rise up and down is. So he's going to continue with the comparison so that hopefully if we get at least a cheap set, we might be able to have a quick sample of PFAS. And the other thing the state just came out with is guidelines for people who have well water and how you do testing and who should do it and who needs to do it. And then we also had comments on the Coastal Management Act and then what how that impacts us. On Route 7 and the Merritt Parkway work, that does impact water quality because there does take place in the watershed for both the Norwalk and the Silvermine River. So any work there will impact the rivers, whether we like it or not. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions for Joe? John?
Yeah, so Joe, yeah, well, hopefully we plan to address that. That's the point that we're trying to bring out with Route 7, Route 15, project with regard to water runoff into Nauk Harbor, Nauk River, actually, up upstream here. So we'll have a special meeting of ARC review to go over that. The other thing, Joe, what is the cutoff point for parts per million? I mean, for a danger point, is it 0.03?
For
Water stop oxygen, yeah.
Usually it's 3 parts per million will cause several species of fish to
We're
die.
down, it was down to 0.1, you
It's
said?
down to 0.1.
Okay, all right. And the other thing, during the dredging project that we had several years back, and I thought, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Army Corps did map out some of the underwater cables in that region between the Stroffolino Bridge and the railroad bridge. They did map out where those lines were, and I thought we had some of that data.
As I recall, we can go back and check that that's one of the reasons they didn't dredge between the bridges because they couldn't locate all of the lines.
Well, they have conduit and they have electrical lines going underneath, and then also the railroad also has that new. I said they put their new cables underneath there as well, didn't they?
If you remember, the phase 1 did not dredge between the bridges because they couldn't determine where all the lines are.
Gentlemen, Owen Lee, Deputy Harbor Master. 3 weeks ago, Chiambro stated that they had located all the power lines that span the river. There's buoys on the east side that mark them that go across, and they've spray painted the pilings as of 3 weeks ago.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other questions for Joe? Comments about water quality? Moving on to new business. Is there any new business? Does anyone have an issue to raise? Not all jumping at once. I guess we'll move on to the next item. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Well, second and third. Any discussion about adjourning? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very, very much for your time and efforts and good thoughts. Thank you very much, especially Steve, who's works long hours. Thanks,
Anytime.
Steve.
Have a good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Ladies.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Steve.
guys.